It was the last day of my senior year, that bittersweet blend of excitement and melancholy that only high school seniors truly understand. My school was small, rural Pennsylvania, population barely scraping 1,200. We were a close-knit community, the kind where everyone knew everyone's name. Or at least you thought you did. Every face was familiar, every laugh recognizable. Or so I believed. That afternoon, after the final bell shrieked, slicing through the air like a siren of freedom, I walked back into the school building. The hallways, moments ago teeming with shouting, laughing students, were now rapidly emptying. A strange echoing silence was already settling in, the kind that feels too vast, too still. I'd left my trusty sketchbook in my homeroom, room 108, and I needed it. It was filled with weeks of intricate doodles and half-finished illustrations, a record of my artistic journey that year. The room should have been completely deserted by then. As I rounded the corner near room 108, a sound cut through the deepening quiet. It wasn't loud, just a murmur, a whisper. Two voices. One was low and distinctly male, a gravelly mumble I couldn't quite decipher. The other was higher, thin, and kind of shaky, almost like it was on the verge of tears. My step slowed. I assumed it was just a teacher talking with a student, maybe a last-minute consultation before summer break. A lingering question, a final piece of advice. Innocent enough, right? But as I cautiously peeked into the room through the narrow window in the door, a cold knot began to tighten in my stomach. It was completely empty. Desks lined up in neat rows, the whiteboard gleaming blankly, chairs tucked in. No one, not a soul, or at least it should have been. A shiver traced its way down my spine despite the warm June air. My sketchbook was still there, lying exactly where I'd left it on my desk near the front. I pushed the door open, the old wood groaning faintly, and hurried inside, my heart already picking up an uneasy rhythm. I grabbed my sketchbook, clutching it tightly. As I turned to leave, a movement in the periphery of my vision caught my eye. There it was, a reflection in the large classroom window overlooking the schoolyard. Two distinct figures standing directly behind me. One tall, broad-shouldered, the other smaller, slighter. My blood ran cold. I spun around, my breath catching in my throat, ready to confront whoever was trying to prank me. But there was nothing. Absolutely nothing. I was utterly terrifyingly alone in that silent room. And then, with a sharp echoing crack, the classroom door slammed shut behind me. I swear on everything I hold sacred, I didn't touch it. No gust of wind, no passing person, just the door violently shutting on its own. Panic seized me. I yanked the handle, tearing the door open with a desperate surge of adrenaline, and bolted out into the empty hallway, my heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. I didn't stop running until I nearly collided with Mr. Henderson, the night janitor, who was slowly pushing his cart down the corridor, humming a tuneless melody. He looked at me startled as I gasped for air, trying to explain, my words tumbling out in a frantic rush. Room 108. There were voices. Room 108. And then the door just slammed. Mr. Henderson's face, usually crinkled in a perpetual good-natured smile, dropped instantly. His eyes, normally a gentle blue, became shadowed and distant. He just muttered 108 again, his voice flat, almost devoid of emotion, and then without another word, he simply turned and walked off, continuing his methodical rounds as if my terror was a routine occurrence. His reaction, more than anything, cemented the fear in my mind. 108 again. What did he mean again? A few days later, still rattled, I couldn't shake the image of those reflections, the sound of those voices, and Mr. Henderson's chilling words. I started digging quietly at first, then with a growing sense of morbid fascination. Our small town had an old library filled with microfiches of ancient newspapers. What I found sent a fresh wave of ice through my veins. Turns out in 1978, a teacher and a student had disappeared from the school during the last week of classes, vanished, without a trace. Their names were Evelyn Redd and Thomas Miller. Both were last seen entering room 108 on a Tuesday afternoon. They were never found. Not their bodies, not their belongings, nothing. Just gone. The case was cold, officially unsolved, dismissed over time as a runaway or a tragic accident. But the unspoken truth lingered in the town's quiet corners. I haven't drawn anything since. Every time I pick up a pencil, Every time my hand hovers over the blank page of a sketchbook, I see those two figures in the reflection standing right behind me, and I wonder, were they always there? Were they waiting for me to join them in room 108? I went to middle school in a quiet suburb outside of Portland, Oregon. It was the kind of place where nothing much ever happened. Life was predictable, safe, or so I thought. On the last day of 8th grade, usually a day of pure unadulterated joy, a weird snag hit my plans. My parents, for the first time all year, were running incredibly late picking me up. They'd called apologetic, stuck in unexpected traffic on the highway. "Just wait inside, honey. My mom had said we'll be there as soon as we can." But I was impatient, buzzing with the energy of summer freedom, and the school building felt suffocatingly hot and empty. So I decided, spur of the moment, to take the bus home for the first time that year. Weird, right? All year they'd driven me every single day without fail. But that one day, that crucial, fateful day, I made a choice that still haunts my waking thoughts. The school bus loop was usually a chaotic symphony of roaring engines and shouting kids, but now it was mostly deserted. Most of the buses had already pulled out, their yellow forms shrinking into the distance, but one was still there, sitting idly, engine a low rumble, exhaust shimmering faintly in the oppressive heat. The sign above its windshield, digital and slightly flickering, said Route 17. I didn't recognize that route. Not at all, but I figured maybe it was a new summer route, or perhaps it looped in a way that eventually led near my neighborhood. My house wasn't far from a main road, so it seemed plausible. Hesitantly, I approached the bus and climbed the 3 steps. The driver didn't say anything when I got on. No greeting, no request for my destination. He just nodded, a slow, almost imperceptible tip of his head. His face was obscured by the glare on the windshield and the brim of his cap, but I remember feeling a strange, heavy stillness emanating from him. The interior of the bus was freezing, which was bizarre. It was a sweltering 85 degrees outside, the kind of humid summer day where the air conditioner in the house works overtime. But inside the bus, an unnatural chill permeated everything, making my skin prickle with goosebumps. It smelled faintly of something metallic, like old coins and stale air, with an undercurrent of something undefinable, something wrong. I picked a seat near the back by a window, hoping the cool air would eventually feel less unsettling. Only one other student was on board, 2 rows ahead of me on the opposite side of the aisle, a girl, blonde hair meticulously braided down her back. She looked familiar, but in that weird, dreamlike way, like you've seen someone in a memory that isn't quite yours, a face from a half-forgotten dream. I tried to place her, but her back was to me, and the strange chill of the bus seemed to dull my thoughts. The bus pulled away from the school slowly, silently, with an eerie smoothness. We glided onto what I assumed was the main road, but as I looked out the window watching the familiar landscape blur past, a cold wave of realization washed over me. We weren't on any road I knew. The streets were too narrow, paved with cracked asphalt, overgrown with weeds pushing up through the fissures. The houses, if you could even call them that, looked abandoned, their windows boarded up with rough, unpainted planks. Some had their front doors hanging open, like gaping mouths revealing nothing but shadows within. The trees lining the road were gnarled and sickly, their leaves a dull, unhealthy green, almost black in places. This wasn't my Portland suburb. This wasn't anywhere I had ever seen. A surge of panic jolted through me. I leaned forward, my voice catching in my throat, and called out to the girl. "Excuse me, where are we going?" She turned around, slowly. Her movements were stiff, almost mechanical, like a puppet on strings. Her face was pale, almost translucent, and her eyes were wide, unblinking, and seemed to hold an ancient, terrible sadness. Her lips moved, and she said in this flat, almost mechanical voice, devoid of all inflection, "You weren't supposed to get on." The words hung in the frigid air, chilling me to the bone. They weren't a warning. They were a statement of bleak, irreversible fact. I scrambled to my feet, my heart pounding a frantic rhythm against my ribs, and stumbled to the front of the bus. "Stop the bus," I yelled, my voice cracking. "Please, stop the bus." The driver remained utterly unresponsive. He didn't look at me, didn't even blink. His hands remained steady on the wheel, his gaze fixed straight ahead, as if I were nothing more than a ghost, a ripple in the air. I shouted, I begged him to stop, my pleas becoming more desperate, more choked with fear. Nothing. Just the low rumble of the engine, the unnatural chill, and the surreal, crumbling landscape outside the window, taken me over an hour of terrified, desperate running. The clerk, a gruff old man with a perpetually tired expression, looked at me like I was utterly insane when I finally managed to stammer out the question. Route 17. Do you know where Route 17 is? He squinted at me, then chuckled, a dry, humorless sound. Kid, Route 17? That route's been shut down since '95, he said, shaking his head. Bus driver died at the wheel. Heart attack. Never made it to his last stop. Pulled off road and sat there for a week before anyone found it. I didn't take a bus again until college. Even then, the sight of a yellow school bus, especially on a hot day, still sends a cold shiver down my spine. And sometimes in the dead of night, I wonder about that girl with the braided hair. Did she ever get off that bus? Or was she, like me, just an accidental passenger on a journey that was never meant for the living? Our school had a deeply ingrained tradition. On the very last day of classes, once all the final assignments were handed in and the last tests were taken, every single student received their yearbook. And then the true chaos began. The hallways erupted into a buzzing hive of activity as everyone rushed around. Yearbooks clutched like sacred texts, eager to collect signatures, silly drawings, heartfelt messages, and inside jokes from friends, crushes, and even teachers. It was a rite of passage, a tangible record of our year. My best friend Kara was obsessed with her yearbook. More than anyone I knew, she approached it with an almost scientific precision. She'd made everyone sign on specific pages meticulously arranged by who she thought would be famous, forgettable, or morbidly dead by 30. It was a weird, dark joke that only Kara could pull off, but it was just her way. She had this entire system. The jocks on one page, the drama club kids on another, her close friends reserved for the inner sanctum of the very first pages. But something happened that last day, something that twisted that innocent tradition into a nightmare. I was looking for Kara after the bell, wanting to compare notes on signatures and see who had managed to get the most outrageous messages. I eventually found her sitting by herself in the back of the gym, a cavernous space that was now almost deserted. She wasn't laughing or chatting or even meticulously organizing signatures. She was just sitting there, hunched over her open yearbook, flipping through the pages like she was desperately searching for something. Her face was pale, a shocking, sickly white. Her eyes were wide and blank, devoid of their usual sparkle. It looked like all the blood had drained from her. I walked up to her, concerned. "Hey, what's wrong? You look like you've seen a ghost." She didn't respond immediately. She just slowly, almost mechanically, handed me the yearbook. Her fingers were trembling. She pointed, her digits shaking, to her own photo, the one on her personal page. My breath hitched. It wasn't the photo she'd submitted, not the cheerful, slightly goofy school portrait taken months ago that showed her bright, wide smile and a smattering of freckles. It wasn't even a school portrait at all. It was a candid photo of her in bed, asleep. Her hair was messy, sprawled across the pillow. The covers were pulled up to her chin. The angle of the shot was what made my stomach clench into a cold, hard knot. It looked like it was taken from inside her closet, as if someone was hiding in there watching her sleep. My mind raced, trying to find a rational explanation. A prank? A sick joke, but my gut screamed that this was something far, far worse. Kara finally spoke, her voice barely a whisper. "Look at the others." We flipped through the other students' pages. My hands were shaking now too, and what we found, I still can't quite believe it. Several other students had wrong photos. Some showed people looking directly at the camera, their eyes wide with fear or confusion, in places they should have been absolutely alone, in their showers, distorted by the steamy glass, in their cars, staring blankly from the driver's seat late at night, in their own bedrooms long after their lights were out. One showed a boy, known for his pristine room, sitting in a chair, his face slack with sleep, surrounded by what looked like absolute filth and strange, unidentifiable symbols scrawled on his walls. Kara tried to laugh it off, a thin, brittle sound that held no humor, but I could see it in her eyes. She was terrified, truly deeply terrified, the kind of fear that hollows you out from the inside. We went straight to the principal's office. Mr. Harrison was a stern but fair man, and he listened patiently, though his skepticism was palpable.